everybody. I've joined today for three reasons, really. Number one, Kamlesh invited me, and I like entrepreneurial spirit. I like young people that try to make a difference. That's number one. Number two, Naveen Munjal is somebody that I've admired for some time. I've told you all that, I think, a little bit earlier. And number three, India is probably the most important and significant part of the next component of the electric vehicle story than any other country in the world, because of the growing population, because of what's been happening in China and not been happening in India. So there are many things that we need to fix. So my background is in and around EVs. I do a lot of my work on LinkedIn, or mainly my work is on LinkedIn. And what Dr. Apura has been sharing in terms of startups and some of the innovation coming in that, and what Naveen has been talking about, really fit into what I'd like to discuss. I've been in the automotive sector for 30 years and EVs for 15, and I'm 61, so I've been around a little bit. I mentioned LinkedIn. Can you not show the presentation, Kamlesh? Does it not work? We've just got one screen. No, you can't do it. Okay, I'll just talk. Let's not bother with the presentation. What is about to happen is the mass adoption of electric buses, taxis, vans, scooters, bicycles, not electric cars. The switch from EV to EV from ICE is not the full story of what we need to see. This will not deliver the changes in terms of air quality and the changes in terms of climate change in the way in which we'd like to see. Kamlesh, don't bother with the presentation. It's confusing. Just leave that for the moment. So if you look at ownership per thousand of the population around the world, in India, it's around 22. In America, it's 840. What does that mean? People choose to own cars, and they have for 100 years or more. And it's been the biggest mistake. So the switch from over to EV isn't just about that. It's about the switch from owning to using. It's the switch to buses, shared mobility, to electric taxis, to electric scooters, electric vans, etc. This can be and will be the only way we tackle the principal challenges that we've got. So this puts India in a very strong position. Let me tell you why. You have a relatively young population. They are pretty well educated and they're entrepreneurial in spirit. You have access to huge opportunity with renewable energy, particularly solar, and therefore storage. So I agree with Naveen on almost everything that he talked about earlier, but I would perhaps politely suggest that the battery isn't just about mobility. It's of course also about renewable energy. So having your own gigafactories within the country and localizing as best you can the supply chains to produce those batteries isn't just for electric vehicles, electric scooters and buses and so on. It's also for renewable energy, for renewable energy storage. So the development of microgrids, the ability for the nation to shift to much less reliance on oil and much more reliance on renewable is predicated on the battery being at the heart of this. So the battery is there for renewable energy and the battery is there for electric mobility. So I think that the journey that you're on now, the one missing link in what happens next for EV and renewable energy in India is political leadership. The singular reason why China is much more advanced than India isn't because of intellect, isn't because of entrepreneurial spirit, isn't because of the capability of industry to do things. It's because of the lack of cohesive leadership that joins up a long-term plan and then builds into that the building blocks of how it all comes together. China has a program called Made in China 2025. It's a strategic outline that incorporates not just new energy vehicles, but new energy as well, and many other things. So Mr. Modi, having just won a second term, has got a golden opportunity to build on the consistency he has now of what he's doing. And please bear in mind, I'm not wishing to be political in saying this. I don't know enough about India, and I've never been to India to have a real proper opinion. And you shouldn't listen to anything I think about that, because I don't know anything about it really. All I would say, as I said before, is that India now sits at the cornerstone of some amazing changes, and it has a much, as I see it from an outsider, much more going for it than it has against it. The biggest challenge is helping your politicians understand that there is a golden opportunity here to rekindle the dynamism of India, the culture of the people, the entrepreneurial spirit, the intellectual capital, and be a huge part of the circular economy, where we're going next with the 21st century. So I'd be very excited to be in India. And would I be frustrated? Would I be disappointed by many of the things that happen? Of course. But I wouldn't let that defeat me. And I think Naveen, in his journey over the last decade and some, is a good illustration of that. So look, that's my kind of run through of it, if you like, without the slides and things. And look, it's a challenging things to put these things together, Kamlesh. Not everybody's Wi-Fi works well and all of that sort of stuff. So listen, I admire you as a young man pulling all of these people together, and I think students and young people looking to learn, it has to happen to bring the revolution on. So that's really all I wanted to say. So any questions? Yeah, more than happy to answer them.
Hi, hi Roger.
Hi Tokati, how are you doing?
Hi, I mean, just to introduce myself, I'm working for a company called Messilio Mobility Private Limited, which is into the EV last mile delivery segment. So we use a lot of EV fleet here in Hyderabad and the other two cities like Bangalore and Chennai, like 150 odd numbers in each city. So day in, day out, when I look into the operations, the prime concern that I look at this point is the safety of batteries being switched. And I've seen Apurva sharing a couple of thoughts on petrol bunks being facilitating the battery swapping options, and making sure the cities are ready for the EV charging stations. So keeping all this in mind, how far are we ready, or how far are we from ready for this particular whole setup, so that we can run the operations as a fleet with an ease? Because as I see, I mean, as I totally agree with you, US, Europe, and China are far ahead from what India is at this point of time. But safety is what I want to. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, safety is a fundamental. You will not get accreditation in any market unless, in terms of the homologation of a vehicle, large or small, that the safety criteria has been met, has been matched. But coming on to your central point, for sure, the rest of the world is more advanced in terms of a lot of the activity, technical activity and innovation. But where the rest of the world isn't advanced, and India has an advantage, is in the culture of sharing. The sharing economy is part of the circular economy, and the circular economy is the only way this shift works. And so inherently, the Indian nation is a nation of people that understand working together gets better results. People work more in teams and have more innovation capability to come to the aid of people and fix things quickly. You're an amazing nation of fixers. My son and his friends drove across India in tuk-tuks to have an experience of India, and they said wherever they had a problem, wherever they stopped, somebody just appeared and could fix it. It was amazing. So culturally, you are probably in the best place in the rest of the world in terms of adapting to the sharing economy. Safety is a fundamental. You're right. Battery swapping, I'm a fan of, but when it's small batteries, as Naveen says, you can click a cassette out. Companies like GoGoRo and Hero and other people, you can take the battery out, you can put it in a cassette, you can take it up to your room and charge it. All of that's very good. But the last thing I'd just like to say, if sort of adding on a little bit to your question, I think that the sharing economy will be about public transport and cars, definitely. micro-mobility revolution, I think, and this isn't just COVID, but COVID is going to impact it a bit, is that as micro-mobility gets cheaper and cheaper, rather than paying to rent a scooter or paying to rent an electric bike over and over again, with the mass adoption of those vehicles, the cost will come down to a point then where people will simply buy them, and it will make sense to own a relatively inexpensive asset with not too much, material in it, but then doesn't share it with the world. It's the use of cars that only get driven 10% of the time that's crazy. We make about 80 to 90 million cars a year around the world, and between 90% and 95% of the time, they don't get used. That's a disgraceful use of very valuable assets. But in micromobility, with a scooter that might cost, I don't know what the equivalent is in India, but let's say $100 or something, or $200, owning that, because there's not a lot of asset involved in that product, makes sense for the individual and the industry and the environment.
Thanks, Roger.
Electric vehicles, as well as we also sell the Kona.